Next, a game. Raise your hand. Who eats? Okay, keep your hands up high. All right. Who farms? Wow. Okay. Next question. Who cares about the climate? Who's a scientist? Oh, interesting. Next question. Who cares about whether people are hungry or dying all around the world? It's a trick question. You better put your hand up on this. Okay? Who's been around the world working with those people to get them food? So here's my point here. We're all engaged in all of this, but very few of us have expertise in all of it, or in some cases, any of it. That's why we are here, to listen to one another and to hear these different points of view, to learn from one another. We all have opinions about food. We all have stories about food, but few of us have experience growing it, dealing with the challenges to making it come through. So what we're going to offer you here in a minute is a really interesting dynamic dialogue with different points of view, and it's sort of a cross between Meet the Press and speed dating. It's a little bit of a game. There'll even be a buzzer that will buzz people off. But first, and I want to show you a video, Devin Greene, whom you'll meet in a moment, who will be your Ryan Seacrest for this little episode. Devin was a student with us just a couple of years ago. He's now working with us. He's a storyteller. He's also a stand-up comic, believe it or not. He went to Ethiopia just a few months ago to see his brother. He took his cameras with him. Part of the story is that we all care. Part of the story today is that we can all be storytellers. Look what Devin found when he went to Ethiopia. That's the revolution, right? People who have no access to technology suddenly have it and they can actually use it. Devin Greene, come on out.
I'm the guy who dropped the kid.
It's all yours, baby.
All right, thank you. All right, everyone. So we're going to do something a little bit different here. As Frank said, a little dynamic dialogue, a little progressive panel. The alliteration lets you know we spent more than 5 minutes thinking about it because we care. And we want you to care because we're going to have a lot of people up here interviewing each other, talking to each other. And the first person I have is a very talented, intelligent young woman. Her name is Brittany Watts. She's a graduate student at Columbia University, and we're going to bring her out right away and get this thing started. There she goes. Hello, Brittany. Right. When this interview is over, you guys will hear a ding. That means time to move on. Sound man.
Oh.
That's the ding. All right. So Brittany, you're interested in communicating science. That's what you're studying at Columbia University. Mm-hmm. Why?
Well, communicating science is important to me because I'm really concerned about climate change, and I think communicating the science of climate change, both in stories and actual science, is the only way to get people empowered with enough knowledge and excited about the topic so that everyone is doing a little bit about it.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think the biggest challenge is to reaching that goal, communicating that well?
Well, I think when it comes to communicating climate change in particular, the biggest challenges are, one, making sure people have enough room in their finite pool of worry to worry about climate change. So breaking things into smaller pieces so that they say, oh, I can worry about recycling my bottles. Oh, I can worry about, eating in a way that's healthy for the planet. So that's one problem. And then the other problem that, of course, I need you to help me and everybody to help me solve is getting people to worry about it enough to actually read. So if the title has climate change in it, what can make people concerned enough to click that button?
Exactly. I love this idea of a finite pool of worry. I read a study recently that people who buy electric cars sometimes behave badly on surveys afterwards because they feel like they've done their good thing for that for that day or year.
Definitely.
We really do. It's maybe it's a willpower thing, but it's a finite amount. And you worked for Teach for America, so your job every day is to get those students to care. How did you try to do that?
Well, that's another interesting thing because when it comes to telling stories of climate change, a lot of the time I rely on other people's stories to do my communication. So when I was a teacher, I read Michael Pollan's book with my kids, and they just really loved it. And it broke it down into enough pieces for them that they could say, oh, Miss Watts, is there extra sugar in my grits? Like, yeah, there is. Or like, oh, Miss Watts, what's in these chicken nuggets? And it did break it down enough so that it was within their finite pool of worry and it didn't overwhelm them.
That's great. So let's talk about some of your experience being a communicator outside of the classroom. You had to communicate one of the toughest topics in the sustainability space, glaciers. Is that right?
Yeah, well, actually, I did work for a news website called Glacier Hub.
Okay.
And you would think, oh, glaciers, what's the news? But actually, there's a lot of news for glaciers because there's an image. Well, when you think of a glacier, you say, oh, it's melting, that'll affect our water supply. And you just think about this slow progression of white mountain to gray to, I don't know, just the top of the mountain. But no, there's more news than that. So when I was communicating about glaciers in that role, there's adaptation stories. Oh,
that's our time. 3.5 minutes. We're going to bring out the next panelist so you can take a stab at this too. And her name is Kathleen Merrigan. A lot of you know her. She's the executive director of the Department of Sustainability here at GW. So let's bring her out.
Hi, Kathleen. Okay, well, let's quickly get started because 3 minutes goes by really fast. So you were deputy secretary at the USDA. How does your work there affect farmers?
Well, we heard from Deputy Secretary Hardin. She talked a lot about farmers and growing up on a farm. But actually, USDA does a lot more than just farming. 80% of the resources from USDA is around nutrition assistance. And when I came in as deputy, one of my goals was to broaden the conversation about American agriculture and to try to get everybody to care where food comes from, who grows that food, why it's important. So a lot of my role as deputy was really maintaining the support that we have for farmers, but broadening the conversation. I thought that was important.
That is very important. And so when you say broadening the conversation, whose eyes needed to be opened?
Everybody's eyes. I would go, and some people have heard me say this before, but I did a college tour and I'd ask college students, how long does a chicken live before it's your dinner? And some people would actually say 2 years. Now, for those of us in the ag world, it's more like 6 weeks. So I was also trying to elevate literacy around American agriculture so that we can have intelligent dialogue.
Wow, that's great. Definitely literacy is an important issue here. And when you just spoke about the chicken, that made me think of the labels on the eggs. So we have our regular chickens, I suppose, free-range chickens, organic chicken, eggs. Can you explain more about that and how the process came of labeling those different types of farming methods?
Well, we have a very extensive program on organic standards, and I've been involved in that over my career. A lot of people think about organic as what it does not mean. It doesn't mean use of antibiotics and hormones. It doesn't use most pesticides, that sort of thing. But I also like to talk about what organic does. I mean, the things that farmers do to build soil organic matter, which in the face of climate change is very important. So it has a lot to do with how animals are cared for and their space requirements. But it's just one of many programs that USDA runs around labeling. We have programs about what's certified Angus beef. We have a lot of grading. So when you buy those eggs in the store, they may say grade A egg. There's standards that the industry decides, so they're quality standards. Lots of rules and regulations. That's what government can be about.
Right. Well, what's your personal opinion about biodynamic farming? And do you think there's a role for that in the United States agricultural landscape?
Well, there are already a number of farmers in the country, I don't have a specific number for you, that practice biodynamic methods. Those are very greatly overlap with organic. So if you're a biodynamic farmer, you're likely able and eligible for the organic label, and you probably are using that too. So you might be making two claims.
Ding, ding, ding. Great thought, great chemistry, right, everybody? All right. Speed date over. Let's bring out the next one. We're keeping this going. This guy named Michael liqueur is the managing director of IKEA Food Services. So, take it away.
Hey, Michael.
Hi.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
So first of all, I want to return these IKEA tools. I have a whole basement of them. Maybe you can recycle them because I'm the head of sustainability here at GW.
Absolutely. I'll bring them back.
Tell me, what's the hardest word that we have to say when we go through your aisles and we look at all the shawaga-boo-boo-boos?
Well, after today, I would like you all to be able to say grønnsaksboller. We'll come back to that, what that means.
So tell me a little bit about the role food plays in an IKEA store. I mean, a lot of us go in to buy our bureaus and our desks, but what is going on in food in your institution?
Yeah, I mean, most people, of course, connect IKEA with furniture, rightfully so. But the food outlets have been part of the IKEA concept since the 50s and the 60s. And as we've grown as a company to worldwide in 46 countries today, the food and the interest of food has as well. So today it's 1.6 billion euro in sales. And I think more importantly, it's 600 million customers or guests that we have in our restaurants in all the stores. And when you come up to those kind of numbers, it becomes a very, very important part of what IKEA stands for and how we want to interact with our customers.
So I understand you have a new product, veggie balls, and you've been involved in that. Tell us a little bit about that, and is that part of your sustainability vision, having that new product line?
The veggie buller, or the grønnsaksboller, because that's what they are, is the first example of a new direction with food. 600 million customers in the restaurants is a huge potential, because we see worldwide that people have an increasing interest in food, in health, in well-being, in quality. They want to know where food comes from, how were animals treated in the process, and this goes universally. At the same time, we also understand that the food industry has up to 29% in Europe and 30%, I believe, of the CO2 emissions as an industry. And therefore, we have an obligation as well on how we source and how we actually want to present the food going forward.
And when you have a big company like you have, do you have a lot of people who have a sustainability in their title? Do you have a little office? I mean, are you thinking beyond food and the whole operations? Sustainability is a big concept.
Yeah, it's a very, very big concept. And I think IKEA took a very ambitious stand, I think 5-6 years back, starting from the furniture side. And the statement we have is that we want to have a positive impact everywhere we are and on the planet. And it has responsibilities to have the reach that we have. And that, of course, also applies for food. And for us, it's not about having a few people in an office somewhere that preach sustainability. We have to ingrain it into our culture, into everybody that we have. There has to be pride on the floor for our people. We have to know what we're doing. And that's really the same journey that we did many, many years back, you could say, on quality, that is now coming in on sustainability. And I think next step will be health and wellness as well.
Excellent. So everyone in the audience wants to know about the Swedish fish. Okay, did the Swedish fish start in Sweden? Those little red guys I get at the checkout? Or did you adopt them in IKEA? I mean, we all love those Swedish fish.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're food exactly, but they're delicious.
No, I don't really think we can take credit for the Swedish fish. And it's a very American phenomenon. We don't have Swedish fish in Sweden or anywhere else in Europe, so I don't know.
I always wondered. So do you have any advice for students who are interested in sustainability? They're thinking about their careers, where this may go?
Yeah, I think for us it's a very exciting journey, and I believe it is a journey. And I think what I've come to learn in the 2 years now I've been in the food side of IKEA is that it excites people. People have a personal relation to food, and we can make a difference. I do believe that it's not too much to say that we can make a difference.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Michael LaCour. Only in America can we take Sweden, right, and distill it into a candy fish.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're good at that. Well, you're going to be interviewing Emily Best, and she's an apprentice farmer at New Morning Farm. So let's get her out here. Emily Best.
Hello.
So during the week, you're on a farm in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And then during the weekend, you're at the DuPont Circle. Why?
Well, DuPont Circle here in DC is one of the biggest producer-only farmers markets on the East Coast outside of New York, I believe. And we sell a lot of our produce at that market. We're a market farm, so most of our produce is sold down here in DC at farmers markets. And once a week, I come down here to sell it.
Okay. And what do you grow?
We grow lots of different veggies, so our farm is certified organic. We do raspberries and strawberries, and then pretty much any vegetable you can imagine, with the exception of eggplants. That's like the one big one we don't grow.
All right. And which one is your favorite?
Well, I manage our lettuce crop, so I'm a big salad lover, and I also manage our cauliflower, and I love cauliflower in the fall.
Okay. What's the most challenging part of organic farming, would you say?
So for me, the most challenging part is that from May until November, I am on the farm or I'm at market, and that is it. It's very difficult for me to maintain my relationships with my family off the farm, my friends, getting online to connect with other people. It's a real challenge because our days are long, the work is hard. It's a 7-day-a-week job for me most of the time, and it takes its toll.
You also worked for the Peace Corps. Where did you work?
So I served in Senegal a few years ago, and I wanted to work in agriculture over there, but it didn't quite work out that way, and I ended up leaving early and then working at New Morning, and so I knew I wanted to be on a farm, and I ended up on one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did that whole experience in Senegal and the Peace Corps influence you now, would you say?
I think it really sort of changed my view on how to affect the most change for me personally. I went into Peace Corps thinking I would do a lot more with international affairs and development. And while I was there, I started reorienting how I approach things, and I wanted to make a bigger effect here at home and in my community. I'm from Pennsylvania, and so it was important to me to go back to Pennsylvania to work on a farm.
Okay. Now, of course, having the opportunity to stand here with you, from what you're growing, what should you be selling to IKEA? What should we be selling of your stuff?
Well, I've been thinking about it quite a bit, and I think a good thing to start with is look at the local growers around your different stores and see, what those farms have to offer you. Connect with the local co-ops in those regions. I know there's an IKEA outside of Pittsburgh, and there's a really great farmers co-op around there. And I think connect with those growers and find out, what do they have. I think kale is something in the U.S. that many people are getting more interested in. It's trendy.
And on kale.
So end on kale.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
All right. Emily, what do you have against eggplant? What did eggplant do to you?
Nothing to me personally, but the flea beetles on our farm just destroy those plants, so we can't manage them.
I knew there was a good reason
Yep.
for that. Let's bring up our next student. Cecile Davis Vasquez is a Latin American Studies major at the University of Arizona, and we're going to bring her out right now. Cecile.
Cecile, so you're a student at the University of Arizona, and you work in a community garden. How did you get involved in that?
So the U of A actually, through the School of Geography and Development, they have a community and school garden workshop class that you can take for credit. You can take it for anywhere from 2 to 6 credits, and you just sort of work it into your schedule. And it's really amazing. It's been an amazing experience for me.
Awesome. So how long have you been working at that garden?
I started at the beginning of the semester, so in January.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome that you can work in a community garden in January in Arizona.
I guess, yeah. Like here in New England, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
But definitely.
So what's it like? Like, what's your, what sort of work do you do at the garden?
So I go in, like I bike to the garden, and then I go in. We usually pull weeds. That's the first thing I do when I get there.
Yep.
Just like maintain the weeds gone, and then I go work with the classroom. We usually decide on some lesson plan we're going to do, maybe based on compost. Actually, we take we're working with a 3rd grade class right now, and we've been teaching them about compost.
Oh,
like,
that's
every day.
great. So how do you water your garden? Does it ever rain in Tucson?
Yeah. So yeah, actually in January when I started, one of the days in January is like the wettest day in like the history of that day.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty crazy. But we have irrigation right now.
Oh,
We've been
okay.
like working on the irrigation lines. They're a little challenged right now.
Yeah.
But we have a water harvesting system too. So,
Okay, that's
yeah.
awesome. And so you're a Latin American Studies major. Does that relate in any way to your interest in the community garden?
Absolutely. It's actually cross-listed through the LAS department. And it's actually really interesting because I was initially exposed to more issues of like race and poverty, but then I started learning about how climate change affects minority populations more than white populations. And so that really relates to sustainability and climate change to me.
That sounds
especially-
like a great program.
Yeah, I love it, yeah.
So when you're not in school, how do you want to be involved in agriculture, if at all?
So actually, I guess this sort of doesn't answer your question, but this summer,
I'll take it.
I'll keep talking, yeah. So this summer, I'm gonna be studying abroad in Guatemala, and I'm gonna start a school garden there at an after-school program. I'm gonna start like a composting program, but then after school, when I graduate, I don't know, I just wanna like chill and like have a garden. I don't know, it's like there's so much stress, and this class has like really reduced my stress levels, just being able to garden.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
yeah.
even though I work long days, I still feel like the work I'm doing is, it sort of feeds me in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, working in the garden helps you sleep better at night.
Yeah.
Like you get better sleep, and then you can like do better on exams, and
Excellent.
I don't know, it's like I love it. It's really, really great.
Oh, well, there's
Okay.
the bell.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily. All right, we're going to bring out our next guest for you to interview. This is Jim Buizer. He's a friend of Planet Forward, a founding director of the Climate Adaptation and International Development Program at the University of Arizona.
Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Okay, Jim, so you're a climate expert. How bad is the situation right now?
How bad? Well, really bad. But how bad it's going to get really depends on how we use our energy, how we produce our energy, and how we use our land. I mean, if one looks at, I don't know if you know this, but in the since 1880, the warmest 10 years that the planet has experienced have happened since 2000. So if you're under age 27, which most of the people here I imagine are, you've never experienced a world that's cooler than the historical average.
Yeah. My parents always talk about how it would snow more and all that kind of stuff. It's been really sad for me. So we have a room full of farmers. How is climate change going to affect them?
Well, I guess the real honest answer is it depends. It depends on where you are. It depends if you're a big farmer or a small farmer. It depends on if you're rain-fed or irrigated. It depends on a lot of things. Actually, it even depends on whether you're competing with other farmers in other parts of the world who are experiencing their own climate change. But I would say mostly that they ought to be prepared for really dramatic shifts. Very wet years, very dry years. Dramatic shifts.
Yeah, you used to have like a bigger range of capacity now. So what's the single most persuasive piece of evidence that climate is changing?
Well, to a technical or scientific audience, I would point to the fact that that we've increased the carbon in the atmosphere dramatically. In fact, if you go back, 800,000 years, we've never seen anything like this. Since 1850s, so the advent of the Industrial Revolution, we've increased, we increased until about 1950, maybe about 20 parts per million. Since 1950 to now, we've almost increased it by 50%, so from about 280 to 400.
Yeah.
But I would say to a less technical audience, I'd say that just look at all of the extremes. Look at the extremes in weather you're seeing all over the world, and floods and drought, and the kinds of things that scientists have been talking about for years.
Okay. How do we best tell the climate story?
I would say talk to people in the way they can understand, that affects them. So point to things that are very specific to them. Everywhere I go, I meet people, and when they find out that I'm working on this, they want to talk about it. And you know, I just last night at the local CVS, I was with the Indian gentleman behind the counter. When he learned that I'd just been in India, he said, you know, in northern India, where I'm from, we used to get floods and droughts sort of on a regular basis. We're used to it, but those happen kind of regularly, but now it's happening all the time. But then I also meet skeptics.
Thank you, Jim. No, thank you for framing the story for us. Thank you. All right, Cecile, great. All right, so this panel is about unusual connections, getting people to talk to each other who maybe don't always get a chance. And our next surprise guest, we spoke to him last night. He's a farmer from California. He loves the land, but he hates the drought. So give it up for B. Van Beek, everybody.
Hi, B.
How's it going, Jim?
Whoa, that's a strong farmer handshake. I'm doing great. So I understand you have a farm in California, and how big is it? And what are you growing, or what do you have?
Well, Jim, first and foremost, we grow milk for Land O'Lakes. It's a farmer-owned cooperative. And to facilitate the milk production, we grow corn, wheat, sorghum, and then we have some separate permanent plantings that are almonds and pistachios.
Wow. So I bet you're real in touch with what's happening there now. How's the drought affected you?
You know, the drought affects us in a variety of circumstances. We've got to source feed, forages for our animals. So first and foremost, that's kind of our biggest concern, is finding something to feed our animals. And secondly, as a farmer and a man that's committed to California agriculture, one of my biggest concerns and my neighbor's biggest concerns is what are we doing to our water source? What are we doing, and what type of permanent damage are being done to our aquifers and our underground water source? And it's real concerning to us, that's for sure.
So where does your water come from mostly?
So we have two sources of water. We have surface water, which comes from the Sierra Nevada mountains, and they developed a canal system in the 50s. And throughout the year, you know, when the snow melts, it enters reservoirs, goes through the canal system, and we call that our surface water. We haven't had surface water in 4 years. So the other alternative is groundwater. Well, groundwater pumping levels were 100 feet, and it's a rechargeable basin, so we thought, well, start pumping it. In the last 4 years, our groundwater level in my area has gone down 130 feet. And how much of that is permanent damage, I don't know. But when you have cows, you got to feed them, and when there's no surface water, it's the only place to get it.
Right, and most of your surface water comes from the mountains, and that's sort of your water bank account that you can hold it up there in reserve and bring it down when you need it. Yeah, that's really challenging. Well, as you might have gathered, I'm a climate scientist.
Yep.
Anything you want to ask me?
Well, when's the drought going to end? That's number one. But also, what I wonder is how much of this is a natural cycle in weather, and how much of this is irreversible damage, and we're going to live in a desert from now on.
Well, I'm going to give you a good news, bad news. So
give me the bad news first. I'm used to
I'm going to give you the good news first. So it looks like everything we see, that the patterns in the Pacific, the ocean and atmospheric patterns are what we see during La Nina. And so this is a natural cycle. We've had El Niños and La Ninas long before we started changing the climate. So this is a La Nina, and generally you get drier patterns, and it's been persistent. And so while we can point to that, we also know that climate change, the patterns we're seeing out there are consistent with what the models are saying is going to happen. So it could happen more regularly. To answer your more specific question, I just read that NOAA is predicting that there's about a 60 to 70% chance that the La Nina's counterpart, the El Nino, which tends to bring rain to California, will show up by this fall. So the good news is maybe this fall.
And how? Oh, there you go.
Thank you, B. All right, thank you, Jim. B will be giving handshake workshops tomorrow for those of you who are sticking around. It's all about eye contact. That's what you'll learn. That's it for the dynamic dialogue, everybody. Thank you. right.
So, thanks, Devin. So, Devin, on the Ethiopia thing,
Yes.
how long were you there?
I was there for 3 weeks. Yeah.
And did you see any climate or people dealing with climate and farming? Or because you were playing with the kids there, but I know you were seeing some farms now.
No, we were. I mean, the biggest issue there, like in California, is water. So I interviewed some people, some Italians who are building this Warka water structure, which wicks it out of thin air, and that can be put in the middle of a village so they can have clean water all the time. Just one of a few stories I was able to get over there. Thanks for playing it forward.
Devin's going to be around, so if you want to talk to Devin throughout the day, he's here. Thanks,
All right.
Devin. Thank you.